No, I don't believe in the death penalty. 93 people were sentenced in a court of law to death. Every one of them were innocent. Hey everybody, welcome to another sit down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. And you know, this particular topic today was really brought on by a comment that I received not too long ago. I was talking about, I think, the O.J. Simpson case, and I made a statement that if the government didn't prove their case against O.J. Simpson beyond a reasonable doubt, then he should go free, even if he was guilty. I also mentioned that my father was framed, and somebody took offense to that. And he said, well, O.J. was a murderer, and he should have been convicted no matter what, and they should have got him on something. Okay, that's his opinion. They said the same about my father, that, hey, your father was a criminal, who knows how many lives he destroyed, and whatever they had to do to get him, they get him, even if they had to frame him. And that was basically the comment. And so it's kind of, motivated me to do this video today. And people, I can tell you, that cannot be further from the truth of what should go on in this country. We should never allow our government to break the law in order to convict, apprehend, charge a defendant. We shouldn't allow them to do that. Once we do that, we have anarchy in this country. And I'm going to get into it a little bit. It's very personal to me because, yes, I do believe without a doubt, I'll take this to my grave, that my father was framed for a bank robbery case. My father was no bank robber. He didn't order the bank robberies. We proved that. We just couldn't get the conviction overturned. As a result, my father did a 40-year prison sentence for a crime that he didn't commit. His life was basically destroyed. My family's life was destroyed. My life went in a different direction as a result of that. So yeah, I take it very, very personal. Now, I'm not going to say that my father never did anything wrong in his life. He was a member of the mob like me. And obviously he did commit criminal activity during his time in that life. We get that. He went to trial several times. He was acquitted on a couple of those cases, but then he was convicted on this bank robbery case. And so I take it very personal. Things happened throughout that trial that just didn't sit well with me. It was without a doubt government overreach, law enforcement overreach happened, and I can get into that, and I will in an upcoming podcast that I'm going to be doing on my dad's life. It's going to be very interesting. The 1960s, from 1960 through 1970, when my father was finally sent off to prison for 50 years, that 10-year period, how destructive it was to my family, what my dad and my mom and all of us went through during his 4 trials. It was just a lot going on. I'm going to be telling that whole story. I think you enjoy that. It's going to come up in the next couple of weeks. People are always asking me about my dad's story, and I think that's the most interesting part of it. It's unfortunate, but it was. And during that time, I had some encounters with law enforcement. I remember one time my dad had a hearing in front of the judge. And it was a strong hearing. We had uncovered evidence that my father was absolutely framed. We had one of the witnesses that recanted their testimony that said that they framed my father. We gave him a lie detector test, proved that they lied at the trial. On the eve of this hearing in front of Judge Jacob Mishler, on the eve, the day before, I'm in my office in a body shop that I was working at, and 2 FBI agents come in. And they said, Franzese, you're coming with us. I said, what is this all about? They take me in the car like I was under arrest. And I said, what is this about? FBI, I didn't do anything wrong at that point. And they said, well, we uncovered information that you had planned to kidnap Judge Mishler's daughter, the judge presiding over my father's case on the eve of my father's hearing. Total nonsense. I didn't even know the judge had a daughter. So I said, my father's hearing is tomorrow. I said, did you bring this to the attention of the judge? They said, yes, we did. We had to. We're obligated. We're law enforcement. I said, what did the judge say? The judge said, quote, I remember like it was yesterday, I'm not believing it, but neither will I discount it. Now, what does that say? on the eve of my father's hearing in front of that judge, this is the information that was brought to him. It was an absolute out-and-out lie. Never even knew the judge had a daughter. I was 21, 22 years old at that time. Absolute nonsense. Does law enforcement do things like this? Yes, they do. Now, I want to be very specific here, and I want to be very clear. I am not indicting all of law enforcement. I am not indicting the government as a whole. I'm not indicting all of the FBI agents, all of the police officers. I've said it many times. We do need police in this country, no doubt about it. Do I believe that we need a level of police reform? Yes, I do. And I think it starts from the top. The police, they take orders from the top. The tone of the entire police force has to be set from the top. And whenever you see problems in the force, I think that's the reason why. You don't have the right system in place for these officers. But I want to get into something specific, and I want to talk about both prosecutorial misconduct. It's very real. It's alive and well in this country. It's something that should not take place, and something that we, as the people, have to look for, and we have to monitor, and we have to stop it as best as we can. How we do that, I'll get into later. But I want to bring out some examples. There have been many, many, many wrongful convictions in this country. I spent almost 10 years in prison. A lot of the guys come to me, Michael, I was framed. Not everybody was framed, but there were a lot of things done during their cases that were just not right, where prosecutors committed misconduct, where law enforcement overreached to try to create evidence at some point, or to try not to give evidence that's exculpatory, evidence that could help somebody in their case. I experienced that, and it happened to many of my fellow inmates during that time. And I want to bring up something. These are some very real statistics that I want you to know. I'm going to have to read them. And this is about prosecutorial misconduct. I'm going to read them, so bear with me. I want to speak about one particular case. And there's so many examples like this, but one particular case. In 1987 in Texas, there's a fellow by the name of Michael Morton was convicted of murdering his wife based upon circumstantial evidence. You know what that is? It's not direct evidence. It's evidence that they try to piece together through circumstances that show somebody's guilt. Morton's defense attorney was never told about or given access to the police report in which Morton's 3-year-old son had told the police that his father did not kill his mother. After serving 25 years for murdering his wife, Morton was exonerated after attorneys were finally given access to the police report 25 years later. They held that evidence, they didn't turn it over, and they're obligated as part of the discovery to turn it over to the defendant. And DNA testing of a bloody bandana found at the scene of the murder matched a man who was serving a sentence for the murder of another woman. And this was the little boy's statement. He was 3 years old, but this was the statement that they held back. Daddy was not home when Mommy got hurt. A monster with a mustache hurt Mommy. Now, don't you think that was worthy of investigation? They held it back. They didn't give it to him for 25 years. That was prosecutorial misconduct. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't, oh, we forgot. They purposely held it and convicted an innocent man. DNA exonerated him. And this analysis was done by the Innocence Project. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they're a great organization. When they believe that somebody's been wrongly convicted, they go and they do the investigation, quite often for free. They have freed so many people on DNA evidence. It's amazing. Barry Scheck, who was one of the defense attorneys in the O.J. Simpson case, has played a significant role in the Innocence Project. And the amount of people that they have freed that were wrongly convicted, many of them because of overreach by the prosecutor, out and out criminal activity by the prosecutors and law enforcement, and they've overturned convictions. So I want you to hear this. In their analysis of the causes of wrongful convictions in cases where the conviction was overturned based upon new DNA evidence, researchers found that prosecutorial misconduct was a factor in 36 to 42% of their convictions. Do you hear what I just said? Wrongful convictions where DNA proved later on that these people were innocent, 36 to 42% of the convictions came about as prosecutorial misconduct, meaning that the prosecutors committed criminal activity by either not turning over exculpatory evidence or allowing perjured evidence to come in, and they convicted these people wrongly, destroyed their lives. Are we to tolerate something like this in a free society, in a republic that we live in? I want to give you a little bit more. Prosecutorial misconduct cases. I'm going to read off just a couple. There are hundreds of them, but I'm going to read a couple. Caldwell versus Mississippi. Prosecutors misstated the law when arguing to the jury. In Mooney versus Holohan, prosecutors knowingly used perjured testimony. In other words, they put a witness on the stand who they knew were lying. And this came all out, it all comes out later on. So they allowed perjured testimony in order to get a conviction and destroy that person's life. In Brady versus Maryland, prosecutors suppressed evidence favorable to the defendant that might have led to a not guilty verdict. Very famous case, Brady versus Maryland, has a lot to do with discovery that has to be turned over now. The United States versus Shield, prosecutors ignored their obligation to disclose to the defense special treatment or promises of immunity they had given to a government witness in exchange for testimony against the defendant. I got a whole list here. I'm not going to read them all, but just one or two more. In the United States versus Doyle, the prosecutor failed to disclose that the government had presented false evidence against the defendant. Again, these are prosecutors allowing this. This isn't a witness getting on the stand and making up a story. This is a prosecutor allowing this to happen. The bottom line here is prosecutorial and law enforcement misconduct is a big problem here in this country, and it goes unchecked quite often. A lot of times defendants don't have the money. If you don't have money to defend yourself in America, it's pretty tough. You know, yeah, they give you a court-appointed attorney, they pay for it, but it's not the same. It's very, very expensive to defend yourself. What do we do to combat this? It's all about the people that we elect and we put in office. You know, I look at some of our government officials and I hear things that are coming out of their mouth. I don't understand how they get elected. I really don't. I'm not going to name names at this point. This is not Republican or Democrat. This is across the board. It's why I'm writing the book, Mafia Democracy. You're going to see what I'm saying. This is not a partisan book. It's a bipartisan group book. I'm going to show you things. I'm going to bring it to your attention that you're not going to like. So what do? We have to be very, very careful about who we put in office, who we're putting in charge, whether it be, you know, at the highest levels of the federal government and the state government or in the lower levels. We have to be very careful, people. This is important. We're losing a grip on our republic and our democracy. We really are. And I will tell you this again. The standard of proof to convict a defendant in this country is that the government must prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. If they don't do that, our system says that that person must go free even if they're guilty. Some people can't wrap their heads around that. But remember, every situation is not only about that one particular person, it's about everybody. And if you cross the line for one person, you'll do it again for another. And by the way, many of the cases that I mentioned here before, these are not mafia cases. These are not organized crime. These are regular people. And if you do your research and you find out, you will be, I'm sure, extremely angry and shocked at some of the innocent people, how they've been treated. So what do? Again, this is not across the board. I'm not saying eliminate police. I'm not saying eliminate our system. I'm saying that we have to monitor it better, put the right people in office, and do the right thing. So I can go on and on about this because it's something very personal to me. Obviously, I've had my share of the criminal justice system. I've seen it all from A to Z, but we're not. We're done for the day. So hopefully this means something to you. You know, I don't only tell stories. I like to give you information that's helpful to you, that's informative. That's what we do in our community, in our inner circle, in our crew, michaelfranzese.com. Join it. You're going to get a lot of information, a lot of encouragement. We got almost 12,000 people in there right now, and I assure you they're all benefiting by it. And subscribers, keep coming. You're building up. We're getting to that 500,000. Remember, big giveaway at the 500,000. Going to be a lot more than we did before, and you're really going to enjoy it. So that's it for today. What do I always leave you with? Be safe, be healthy. God bless. See you next time.